Hello, good afternoon, everybody. It's Graham Cove with another My Music. Today, I'm going to be talking to Rich Roman. He can't make up his mind who he is. You can't make up your mind whether you're listening to him or not. Come on back, everybody, in a minute or two after this video when we will talk to him about the new remix album. But first, this. There you go. Did you enjoy that little slice of electronica there?
That was a pretty slick intro.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
getting a lot of interference still on your mic. I'm seeing if I can sort it out. One minute.
It's very odd.
Yeah, I've had this before. And I keep on having to then put echo on, turn echo off. But there we go. I can hear you now. Okay, for a minute.
Excellent.
So, what have you been up to since I last spoke to you? This isn't an entirely new project, is it?
No, it's a continuation of the Music for Underwater Supermarkets album. And it's something I've been talking about with my friend and the person who remixed the entire record, Scott Solter. We've been talking about it for a while. Even when I started working on the record, I've always loved the remix work he's done. We worked a lot on a number of projects, other projects in the past. And I just wanted to hand it off to him and just be like, here, do whatever you want to. I want to be completely surprised. I want it to be nothing like what I gave you. I want you to kind of mangle it up as much as possible. And I knew that if I gave him a free hand in doing that, he would completely succeed. And I think he did.
It's certainly a lot darker in places than the original, isn't it? Yeah. I presume because you put it out, you're pleased with the results. What fascinated you most about what you got back?
So when we started, I definitely wanted this darker feeling, and I thought that the idea of being underwater, you have your different levels. I'm no scuba diver. I haven't really spent much time underwater, but I've watched documentaries. And so this idea of going further and further under the water, being more submerged, kind of there almost being inescapable. Sort of like one of those movies like The Abyss where you're just stuck underwater and, you're kind of got no way out. And I wanted it to be that, and I wanted it to be different enough from the original. And I think that the track that I liked most of what he did is the final track, which is sort of a 16-minute, really long ambient track. And I was just, kind of like this one. That one and the first one were really kind of the two highlights for me. Really love all the other stuff that he's done, and he sort of comes to ambient music from a different angle than I do. He's kind of like the darker, like finesse and some of like the 4AD stuff, and like kind of come at it from some of the like, we both love Brian Eno, but I'm more the Apollo Brian Eno era, the very shiny, beautiful thing. And yeah, we both love what each other likes, but we don't do it in our own music, perhaps.
Of course, you mentioned Brian Eno there. Of course, Brian Eno has collaborated with so many musicians himself. I mean, I think when I think about projects like the music that Brian Eno did with David Byrne, for example, very different approaches to music in a way, but came together very well. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
I think so. I think I have a tendency to be very specific and very want to really be in control of the music that I write and produce. And I was trying really to take a step back and let the remix engineer just have a complete field day with it. And it was an exercise for me. I found somebody I trusted. I'm not going to just hand it off to any old person and let them do what. Or maybe I will. If they're.
Well, that's happened in the past. I've known bands that have done that. They've gone, maybe not with a whole album, but with a track. They've gone, here's a track. Here's the stems. Do what you like with it.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think if it just also went in a way that I don't want to put it this way, but maybe I don't like, kind of is like, this is stuff that's very different from what I put out, but it's not different than stuff that's close to my heart and that I like to listen to. I don't think that somebody would maybe get from the music I put out that I listen to a lot of like modern classical and atonal music. But it's something that's near and dear to me that I enjoy listening to.
Then you've achieved your aim here. When you got it back and you started listening through to it, because it effectively is completely different as well. Did it then start building ideas for the future?
It started. That's a good question. It started building ideas. Actually, what it came through on is what turned into my solo live set that I'm going to be performing when I tour over there in the UK. And I sort of started to understand how this music translates to a more fun solo live set. I've done solo sets before, and it can be very challenging without drums, without other people. You really have to keep the audience's interest. And when I heard this, I said, oh, this would be really cool for that because it's moving, it's purposely more electronic, it's not trying to recreate an acoustic thing.
Yeah. It's more dancey.
It's more dancey. We'll see if people dance to it. I'd be surprised, but people have danced to Stranger Things that I've performed.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. What's on your mind at the moment, which you've beyond supermarkets and supermarket music? What's potentially coming out of the mind of Roman next?
Well, there's definitely something coming, and I'm just trying to see, it's in about 6 days, I'm going to be going back into the studio. Very excited for a week-long session with the producer Sean Lee. I don't know if you know him, but I've been in awe of his work for a really long time now, and I'm excited to work with him. And it is a continuation of the supermarket's instrumentation, but a different take on it. And I'm playing nylon string guitar. There's a lot more percussive elements. It's maybe a little more Brazilian. It's somewhere between like percussive Brazilian music meets air meets I keep saying this thing that it's like a slowed down version of African drumming. I don't think that anybody else listening to it will will really get that from it, but in my mind, that's how it's operating.
Okay, so going back to David Byrne, this is your Rio Momo moment, then,
Yeah, it might be.
I love that album, actually. I don't know whether you've ever picked up on that.
Actually, I don't know, and I'm woefully uneducated about David Byrne, and I really shouldn't be, him being a fellow New Yorker and being so prolific and doing so much, but it's one of my blind spots.
Yeah, he sort of went off into that kind of Latin American, Cuban type,
yes, yeah,
beat area with and expanded I think one of the things for him, and I don't know how you feel about that, but I think one of the things for him in doing that as well was that it could literally expand his sound on stage, you know, having those multiple drums. And also, I guess, even if you come at it with a, I don't know, would you ever do this if you've got the electronic stuff happening on stage, but if you can develop a soundscape that's lends itself more to different types of cultural rhythms, that you could perhaps even have like some people on stage, you know?
I would love to do stuff like that, and I've written for that kind of setting. I have a Brazilian duo. Well, we call it a duo, but it's a full band with horns and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
With a friend of mine, and it's called Limoncello. And with that band, if we ever performed live, I have all these horn arrangements. It would be super fun to do that. And yeah, I've learned over the years. I've always been more of an album person. I enjoy listening to albums. I enjoy making records. I enjoy sitting with that like kind of very intentional artistic design. And I've struggled with translating it to live. But I think that I've learned over the years that people just want to have fun. I know that sounds like ridiculous as a thing to learn, but people just want to like get a full experience, have fun with it. You know, it's really more about like how much the artist is putting out on stage. And you know, that I struggled in the past with trying to recreate my record note for note, and really, if you misplay a few notes, leave a few of them out, but you have like a great drummer and percussionist or something like that on stage, people are like, cool, man.
Yeah. So. I mean, it actually takes me back to my DJing days years ago. I mean, we had a little club in London called Abundant. We had a regular club night. And actually did quite a lot of Latin tinged house music, etc. And quite often we'd bring in someone to play one drum or a trumpet, you know, over the top. It worked, and you know, when it's done right, I think, and it's kind of gets that organic feel, I think it's really good. And in a similar way, that's the same kind of thing, because you know, you've got the limitation of you've got the limitation of, well, you're standing still behind decks, aren't you? It's
Yes.
not, you know, you're especially with that kind of music as well. I mean, there's certain kinds of dance music where you're pumping your fist in the air and you're kind of, everybody's going crazy, but you know, it's not that kind of music. And I felt the sort of the live element coming from just the splattering of musicians really kind of helped carry everything. So I can see that working.
Yeah, it really can change things. And in DJing, I've done a bit of DJing myself, but more in the kind of exotica spinning records. But it was also a learning experience, being like, you know, finding out what works and what people respond to. And it's really about that when you're DJing, especially when you're DJing. You know, you lose people off the dance floor, you lose interest, that's it, you know, game over. Like,
yeah, and we're not talking about cringe DJing where where it's easy, you know, you just go, oh, right, I'm going to put ABBA on and everyone will come back to the dance floor. It's you know, we're not talking about that. We're talking about where you're trying to actually craft songs live, craft rhythms live, and it's, you know, you've got to work really hard, haven't you, to keep people's attention there.
I think so.
So anything like that. Okay, so theme wise, you're going to continue the theme. I mean, actually, when you look at supermarkets, though, and I spend an inordinate amount of time in supermarkets. Yeah, well, yeah, I live next to two, so you know, literally out my window here, I can see two supermarkets. So lucky me. But one of the things that's coming into supermarkets more, and it's coming into all of our lives more, is AI in a way, technology. You know, tills speak to you now. They kind of tell you stuff, and it's almost like I've noticed there's almost a rhythm, if you like, to the way that tills work as well, and I quite like the discordance of. I
don't think we've gotten the talking cashiers here, although we do have the automatic checkout.
Yeah, the automatic checkout lanes. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about that. But I mean, I went in one the other day, and it had like 6 of these auto checkouts in a row, and people just left them all nearly at the same time, but not quite. So we actually got, the little voice coming out, go, please remember to take your things. Thank you. Goodbye.
Right.
It kind of went like, please remember.
All over.
I really love that. And I was thinking, do you know what? Someone should use that in a piece of music. It would be great if we could kind of get this kind of element of the computer of the side of supermarkets talking to us.
That could be the I had always thought about doing an ambient, so the remix is this ambient companion, right? But I also thought about, I want to do a record at some point that is a sort of what you're talking about, found sound, and also, what do they call that? Fields recordings that go along with the record. That there are some bands that do stuff that you time the 2 records to start at the same time. So it exists as a Fields recording record, and it's cool, and it's got a vibe. And my other record exists as a record, and then you can put them on together, and they work together. I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think people have 2. I don't know how you do it on a computer. Play 2 records at the same time.
I think you
could.
This is a vinyl release thing, right?
Yeah, right. It could be, and now you have to have 2 vinyl players.
That works. That's fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, I think every DJ's got 2 vinyl.
Good.
But hey, there's a community aspect of that then as well, isn't there? You pick up your record player and you go around to your mate's house and you go, right, we're going to do this.
Yeah. I would hope that people do that. That would be really cool to see. Coming from the kind of, and I think you do too, and probably a lot of people watching this, coming from a world where people are that interested in music that they're willing to do that they want to do that they get excited about doing that. That's really cool to be a part of. Trying to reach out to the more casual listener has always been something that I've thought about over the years and tried to approach in different ways. But yeah, I really enjoy the sort of like community of dedicated music folks. That's really where my heart lies.
Well, I think the problem is for a lot of musicians in kind of reaching the casual listener is that you're kind of pushed or limited into writing around the 30 seconds, aren't you? Or writing around the 20 seconds. That here's the hook.
Yeah.
Here's the ear candy that catches you in 20 seconds and just keeps coming back. Which is great, and it's a skill in itself.
Yeah,
but it's
very much so.
Absolutely, but it really does limit you in terms of exploring anything kind of beyond that, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm impressed by people who can do it, but just because I strive to do things like that, but it's not like what's in my wheelhouse, and I'm just impressed by people who could do it and can do it well. Somebody like Max Martin, who has written for, like, every time there's a song by a super pop artist, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, that I'm like, this is some serious stuff. it's always him that's behind it. And I don't know how he does it, how he manages to explore and be interesting, not just some boring old churning it out, but he does it, you know.
I think there's two sides to that. I mean, I think part of it is hooking onto something which is contemporaneous and is out there in terms of sound, maybe the actual sonics of it, and the subject matter as well, having the right singer at the right time and all of that sort of thing. But also there's kind of as Ed Sheeran's recent court case has shown, there's also an element in which it's as he rightly said, you know, there's building blocks of this that have just been around forever, and actually those building blocks belong to everybody. And you know, the four chord song, I thought it was brilliant actually that he used like the Axis of Awesome video in the court case to kind of showcase, like, you know, here's four chords and you can literally put all of these different pop songs to it, because that there, you know, there are building blocks to stuff that is kind of popular for us.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I'm more upset by that, by the way, following that case. I am more upset not by anything that happened within that, because that was the right ruling, but I'm still upset about the Robin Thicke Pharrell court case that the estate of Marvin Gaye won, because they shouldn't have. And it's absurd to, like, you're not allowed, you can't copyright a chord progression as you're seeing in this case, and you can't copyright a vibe, but supposedly in that case you can. I don't know. I thought it was BS, and I was like, pissed me.
Yeah, no, I was completely with Mr. Sheeran in terms of what he said at the time. You know, ultimately for musicians, it's imperative that people can just create and don't have that fear. Mm-hmm. You know, because everybody that's a musician that's ever been on this has always said, look, you know, I've begged, borrowed, and stolen from somewhere, even if it's just from, you know, an unwanted influence, if you like, that this has pervaded into my soul, and you know.
It's hard not to do that.
Absolutely. So, you know, the day we start going, well, no, you can't actually make anything music wise because it's not original, and start using robots to look at it, will be a really, really bad day.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's a great idea for you. I think we should get some you know, some AI in there somewhere, some robot noise.
I'd love to do, maybe I'll, you know, when I'm over there, I'll whip out the phone and start.
Oh, well, come and see me. Come and, you know, come around for a cup of tea, and we'll wander over and we'll do some field recordings in the local supermarket. I think it would be great.
Yeah.
But sounds in general, I mean, you talk about that field sounds in general, but do you have that sense when you walk through anywhere as an artist that's kind of tuning into the ambience, if you like, of a place? Do you have a sense when you're anywhere of this is the sound of this place?
I think I have a very sensitive ear to sonics in general, and there are some places, restaurants or bars, that I won't go to because of the this sounds so dorky, but because of it says that my mic is muted. Okay. Because of the frequency band of how the sound hits you, like it's too much brain. They have no padding, you know, they have no absorption. So I'm more keyed into that kind of aspect. And then every once in a while, as you're saying, something will hit me as interesting. It was a public place, but I was in a room where somebody was operating an MRI machine, where somebody was getting an MRI. And I don't know if you've ever been in one, but um,
No, my
they
wife has, and she tells me it's the weirdest experience ever.
I I imagine it must be, and I don't look forward to a day when I have to do it personally. But the sounds that are coming through that are like I was like, wow, this is some early electronic, like Daphneorum kind of 50s bleep blue kind of thing. And I wish that I had, I don't think you're allowed to bring a phone into there, but I wish that I had had some recording of it because it was super cool. And you could definitely turn it into maybe something like a Kraftwerk song
Yeah,
style.
I just sense, having been like in a previous life into so many offices all over the country and things like that. I mean, you one of the ways that you kind of remember those experiences very much so is the noise of an office
Oh,
or the sound of a place. I mean, I one brilliant place that I used to have to go and visit as part of an old job was I used to have to go to a Network Rail building. Hello, for anyone at Network Rail, if you're listening, which is in the middle of London, and they literally this office block that they've got literally has the trains run over it, and it's just
do you hear
wonderful.
the trains or hear the vibration of it or both?
You hear the vibration of it, and it's the and the funny thing is the way in which anyone that's working there is clearly tuned out to that as well. I mean,
Sure, of
that's
course.
really interesting, right? But when you're there for the first time, whatever, and you're in the middle of speaking to someone, one of the things you notice is the way that people's speech patterns have changed compared with normal speech patterns.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, in order to accommodate the noise, because I would be speaking to you, for example, and then there would be like, okay, and the next bit, and the next bit, because in between that there's
Wow.
Yeah, but they've become so attuned to the space and this noise, but which is obviously quite regulated in terms of time, that they actually kind of change their speech pattern to it. And I found that brilliant.
I had a speaking of as you're talking about that, I forgot that I had this other idea for a record, and I hope to bring it to reality at some point. And these are kept, right? These are archived. If anybody steals my idea, I can sue them.
We're coming to kill them now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I did really want to do something that was an interactive, I don't know that you would call it AI, but you could kind of call it ambient piece that interacts with the sounds of subways.
Right.
And it'd be loosely called music for subways, but the idea is that very, very broad right now, but that there's like a piece playing, and that when the subway comes in, the frequency range that the subway takes up the music drops that frequency range out of it, so that the subway then fits into it, and it becomes like 7K or something like that, and then it becomes a part of the piece itself. And then there might be other things like this would be such a huge project to undertake, which is why I've not done it. But like interactive, like how many people are on the platform, things like that would change things in the music. So it's a very ambitious idea that I've had for a while. That
I like it. I like it.
Massive grant for, but
what I like about it is that there's it actually reminds me of a conversation that I had with Aziz Ibrahim, who's a fantastic guitarist. I don't know whether you've ever heard his work, but
don't know that I have.
he actually joined the Stone Roses for a while
Hmm.
after John Squire left. Fantastic, kind of plays a lot of Indian-based tabla type stuff as well, and so he's got a real kind of world view of music as well. But one of the things that he's been doing a lot of work with is around sound, but also like heritage type projects. So actually, he's been working with, I'm going to get the council wrong, but I think it's Lancashire Council, etc., in the UK, to capture sort of sounds of how things would sound in an old mill, you know, and what things will sound like in that space before those spaces disappear, so that it's always going to be there. So it's almost part of it's a historical document.
I love that idea. It's very cool.
Because who knows? Subways may not always be the same, you know.
They probably won't.
So there you go. Maybe there's some grant money available, my friend.
I know, it's just getting at it is the difficult part. It's never been something I tried to do. I have friends who do it, and it's its own world. You know, it's starting at a late age with not a massive resume of things that I've done of that sort. Might be a problem, but you know, I don't know.
Who knows?
It kind of owes me one, the MTA especially.
Well, listen, as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
That was really fun.
We could create new music on the fly all day long. Tell people so that they know what the name of the new project is and where people can get hold of it.
Yeah. So the new project, the new remix record, completely remixed by Scott Solter. It's called Supermarkets Underwater, Supermarkets, Underwater. And it's available on all the streaming sites, Spotify. I don't know what people use nowadays, but I use Spotify. And I'm going to be coming over to the UK to tour. And I'm playing with Rodney Cromwell.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic, Rodney. Yep.
Yeah. Who's, I think, and speaking of remixes, I did a remix. I produced a number of the records, the last one, and did a fun remix of Opus 3, which is a real sort of departure from my usual thing, which is it's a real heavy dance number. I kind of was like, what would it be like if I tried to make something for the dance floor?
And now I know.
And now I know. And I think it was successful, and it was for Opus 3, you know, his kind of banger tune anyway. So in the UK, we're playing in London June 8th at Servants Jazz Quarters. Or I can't remember which. Is it Servant Jazz Quarter, Servants Jazz Quarter? I can never remember exactly. Do you know offhand?
I don't know offhand. But if anybody, listening to this knows, just put it in the comments. So we'll all know.
Oh, it's Servant Jazz Quarters. That's the
just
one.
Quarters.
And then Reading at the Face Bar on June 9th. Brilliant. Coventry on June 10th. And then Todd Morden, which I've never been to. And everybody who I speak to in the UK is like, I'm sorry, where is that? But we're playing there on June 11th. And it seems like it's a kind of cool, cute little town.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and whilst you're in Coventry, if you've never been there before, you have to check out the acoustics in the cathedral.
Oh, those are about being in a place and getting a sense of what the ambience is. It's like every time you go into a cathedral, I did a record for I'm an engineer on the side as well, and I did a choral record in this massive cathedral, and I could think of nothing more fun to do. Just set up the mics, love the acoustics, and let the singers rip.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. They really knew how to build a building back in those days.
They really were into God. And they, like, you look at those things and you're like, wow, I don't think I'm into anything that much that I would dedicate my life to building something like that. I guess there wasn't as much to do, you know.
Who knows? Perhaps there was, but they certainly knew how to build. That's
Yeah.
Roman, Rich, whichever one people want to call you. It's what a pleasure to come and
yeah, really fun to talk with you
today.
too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do check out Roman's new record. Please do download it, and if you can, pay him some money, because
Right,
that really
Bandcamp.
helps.
That's where people buy and pay for stuff.
Go to Bandcamp, fill your boots, pay your money. That's the way the cookie should go.
Yeah.
Until later today at 5 o'clock, when I'll be back with another one of these.
Cool.
Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you.